Hi, I'm Kellock, CEO of the Design Institute of Australia. We represent over 2,000 professional designers across all disciplines. For this year's World Industrial Design Day, we saw an opportunity to respond not just as individuals or studios, but as a collective of design professionals leading the Australian design sector. When designers join the DIA, they commit to upholding a shared code of conduct and a set of ethical principles which include values like integrity, transparency, generosity, excellence, inclusivity, and collaboration. They're lenses through which they approach their work every day. In this video, members have come together to reflect on what those values really mean in practice. Through their voices and stories, we hope to spark a richer conversation about the role of ethics in design and what it means to design responsibly together as a community.
Hi, my name's Georgeson and I'm an industrial designer working within the healthcare sector for the Hurston Biofabrication Institute, which operates in Brisbane, the state capital of Queensland in Australia. So in my role, I work as part of a multidisciplinary team with clinicians, researchers and engineers, and we design medical devices, surgical planning tools, clinical training models and patient-specific solutions that respond to real clinical needs in Queensland hospitals. One ethical dilemma in my work involved patient data, which is something we work regularly with when designing models for surgical planning or clinical training. And in this particular case, we were developing a 3D printed training model using patient-derived data. And the data had been ethically sourced, and we had the necessary permissions to use it. But as the model took shape, it became clear that some identifying anatomy had been included. So specifically facial features that could be potentially recognizable. And even though the data was approved, the fact that the person could be recognized made it feel like we were possibly crossing a line. The issue was raised and we ended up modifying the model to improve those characteristics and remove the identification sort of features, ensuring anonymity. And it was just a small design decision, but one that carried a lot of weight, and it reminded me of how easy it is for well-intentioned work to move and evolve into unethical work. So in situations like that, it really highlights how important it is to have a strong design voice within multidisciplinary teams. And sometimes you need to ask the uncomfortable questions or catch the details that might otherwise be missed, and especially when it is affecting real people. I think if designers want to practice ethically, especially in complex areas like healthcare, we need to be clear about the role we play and the responsibility that comes with that role. So design, it's not just about making things better or more usable. It's really about shaping the conditions people live and work in. And as industrial designers and as the industry shifts and technologies evolve, we need to make sure we're using our skills to steer things in the right direction.
Hi, my name is Nila Rezaei. I'm an industrial designer and the chair of Design Institute Australia's New South Wales Council, also known as the DIA New South Wales. In my day-to-day practice, I'm the co-founder of RK Collective, a design and innovation studio with a focus on sustainability and social impact. And I'm also an educator at the University of New South Wales Art and Design faculty, both in design for sustainability and co-design with community subjects. In this segment of the video, I want to talk about one of our core values of generosity and excellence, which is part of the DIA ethical framework. Now, in both roles, as a designer or a design leader and educator, I often think about how do we actually apply ethical design, not just in the things that we create or the products that we create as industrial designers, but actually how do we apply ethical design to really shape the culture of design itself. Now, at DIA, we recognize our responsibility to empower designers to really envision and create a world that's more habitable, regenerative, and resilient. Now, how do we actually do that? Through generosity and through excellence. Now, excellence in design, it's not just about, groundbreaking innovation or cutting-edge tech. It is about those things, but also it's about how we work, how we question, how we interrogate, and it's also about generosity. I'm a big believer in this design as an act of generosity. This is actually why we chose to respond as a group and as a collective and as a community. Now, sharing knowledge, I think, is one of the most powerful and generous things we can do, not just as designers, but generally as humans. It's a very powerful tool. Now, when we share our process, our technical knowledge, our context, our challenges, our technology, we really help each other grow within the design community. And when we're helping each other grow, we can actually uplift the entire community, and we can actually really advance the whole field. So this act of generosity and sharing knowledge can really lead to excellence in the design industry. Now, I don't see excellence as a mastery. You can never become a master and you're excellent, that's it. It's really, it's about staying curious. It's about constantly questioning. It's about staying open, but it's also about being okay with the challenges and with the sort of complexity that comes from these topics. So the role of design education becomes really important here, because at the very sort of early start of a designer's career, if design education is really applying the concepts of ethical design correctly and it's really integrated in the design education, we sort of create these conditions for young designers to be okay with complexity, to ask better questions, and we create the conditions for curiosity in this sense. Now, being generous is also about letting other people in, not holding knowledge too close to the heart or to the chest. And I think especially some of those voices who are not being heard within the industry. I think reflecting on my personal journey, one of the reasons that I started Arche Collective was to really address this issue of not having enough female design leadership in industrial design. I think it's a very well-known fact in our industry in Australia, and I would say globally as well, that we have excellent, amazing female designers, but we don't have enough voice in the design leadership space, especially in the consultancy area. We don't have many consultancies that are led by a female designer for many reasons. And I think I saw that as something that was, in my mind, and I thought, why not start and actually create this platform or create the conditions for other female designers to join or to learn. Now, I always go back to my favorite author and theorist, Victor Papanek, and I want to sort of read out a quote by him. "Design has become the most powerful tool with which we shape our society and ourselves." And I think if you're in a position of design leadership or a design educator or a teacher, that power becomes even more critical. We have the responsibility to build the culture of critical and ethical questioning, care, accountability, across disciplines and across our communities. Now the classroom, the studio, the brief, whatever's in front of us becomes a place where we can actually model these ethical futures, where we can ask better questions, where we can interrogate our decisions better. What is it that we're creating? What is it that we're putting out in the world? And it's also a place where we can challenge the status quo. We say design is not neutral. So these areas are actually areas where we can really challenge the status quo and make sure that design is not neutral. So they're places where generosity mean not holding on to power, sharing knowledge, and excellence mean creating space for others to actually do their best work, to become better, to become more knowledgeable, to become excellent in this case. So I come back to the same question that I ask my students. What kind of designers are we shaping? What kind of designers do we want to be? And how do we stay aware, curious? How do we constantly question the consequences of our outputs? And I think if we want a future-proof profession of industrial design in Australia, we really need to build it together through excellence and through generosity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eloise Cleary. I'm an industrial designer based in Sydney, Australia, and I'm the Deputy Chair for the Design Institute Australia, New South Wales branch. I'm really excited to be talking today on the topic of ethical dilemmas within design, specifically industrial design. I think it's such an important aspect of our work and how we should be approaching our design process. Specifically, I'm going to be speaking to inclusivity. That's something that on both a personal and professional level I value really highly. And today we're focusing on the Design Institute Australia has recently come out with an ethics policy, which I'm a big advocate for some of the content-based inclusivity and respect within the design process. So early in my career, I could see where it was hard to integrate inclusive design within the process based on the fact that the priorities were speed to market, cost efficiency, but really I think we should have people at the forefront of our design process. So there are a few examples that I think are really important to reflect on that are bad examples of design, so they're inaccessible design. One of those are infrared soap dispensers that don't actually acknowledge darker skin tones. Another would be touch screens in elevators. So both of these examples show where these marginalised groups that do make up a percentage of people haven't been considered through the design process, and so therefore they're eliminated from that process and then don't have proper accessibility. I think since COVID-19 there's been a big shift towards accessibility and therefore inclusive design. Immediately this shift came from inclusive communication, but also a shift to working from home, where we needed to have digital accessibility. As a result of this, a lot of people started talking about access, mobility needs, cognitive needs, and mental health awareness. So I think all of this was a really positive shift towards greater inclusion. A really good example of inclusive design done best was the Xbox adaptive controller. This design considered a whole range of user groups, not just mobility, disability, but cognitive and hearing and sight. And so all of these groups were then brought together within a co-design process to actually design this device, which I think is such a great manifestation of it. The fact that it was a modular piece allowed each individual to cater to their needs, not just one universal design for everyone, which I think is the main takeaway. I think personally I'm a big advocate for bringing inclusive design within my personal practice. So I work with a consultancy, and it's something that I want to bring into every project. Really early in my design career, I worked with a biomedical engineer, and we worked with groups such as those that have cerebral palsy and making sure that they could connect with the world more broadly. From the DIA's ethical policy, I wanted to read an excerpt from the inclusivity and respect component. So it says, "We champion inclusive design that values human dignity, diversity of perspective, and cultural sensitivity and accessibility." And then my favourite bit is ensuring that no voices are marginalised in the design process. I come back to this often and I think, what's the point of innovation without integrity, and making sure that we bring that into our everyday design and how we communicate with the world. I think it's really easy to default to speed, efficiency and cost, but really the things that we create and design are impacting real people on the other end. I think it's really important to question our process and not just design for people, but design with them.
I'm Steve Martinuzzo, co-founder and managing principal of Cobalt Design. We're a product design and engineering group based in Melbourne, Australia. Collaboration is central to almost everything we do as designers, but truly ethical collaboration, especially across disciplines, takes real care. It's not just teamwork, it's about trust, shared understanding, and acknowledging the real value that diverse thinking brings to our projects. At our studio, we work across many industries, from medtech, B2B, transport design and consumer products. That means we work alongside people who bring their own expertise in their own areas. Engineers, clinicians, software developers, regulatory specialists, business and marketing strategists. In these environments, design becomes the common link. And so we often find ourselves acting as mediators between the user and the technology, between the client and the manufacturer. Our role often includes making the invisible visible, balancing the competing needs between each specialist stakeholder. But this only works when we take the time to listen, not just to what's being said, but to the reasons behind people's aims or concerns. Respecting these differences isn't just ethical, it's essential to achieving a balanced and accepted design outcome. One of the recurring challenges in collaborative projects is getting clarity around IP, authorship and roles. Who owns the IP? Who gets credited for what parts? If these questions are not resolved and handled honestly and early, things can get messy down the track, and then trust breaks down. We've also come to realise that ethical collaboration requires mutual recognition. Just as designers need to acknowledge the value that other disciplines bring to the design process, it's equally important that our contribution as designers is respected in return. At Cobalt, we believe it's a win-win when clients are open about involving designers in their process, and even champion that involvement publicly. We actively celebrate all our team members who contribute to a project, because we believe good design is always a collective effort. Ethical collaboration isn't something that we write into a contract and forget. It lives in the small everyday decisions, moments where we choose to include and agree rather than assume and decree. where we listen more carefully and we share credit where credit is due. No one firm or discipline has all the answers. But when different perspectives are brought together with respect and openness, something genuinely powerful can happen. As designers, we're fortunate to help shape that process, and we have a responsibility to do so with integrity.
What is one ethical dilemma you've faced in your design work?
The biggest ethical dilemma I face in my design work day to day is definitely around material selection, and especially working in furniture, the goods are really bulky and there's a lot of material in them. So when it comes to material selection, in every single project that we do, we're balancing this tension between trying to hit commercial outcomes, and that often is delivering the project within a really tight timeline and also hitting a certain price point for the customer, but then also balancing that with the material selection used. Is that environmentally sustainable? Is the product long lasting and fit for use? And also, does it deliver on its functionality really beautifully? I think that tension is actually a really good thing, and those constraints are what sometimes pushes us to do our best and most innovative work.
How do you navigate this dilemma? What values or decisions guide you?
I think the goal should be to create products that people want to keep for a long time, that age beautifully, and that really become a part of their lives. That's my why, especially in situations where we might need to consider compromising on cost or materials.
What do you think designers need to do now to practice ethically?
To practice ethically today, I think designers need to resist the pressure of hyperspeed trend cycles, especially in a time where social media drives constant consumption. We have a responsibility to design with intention, and that might mean sometimes we need to push back on the brief or the project timelines for the betterment of the project outcomes. I also think our community is important to hold us accountable in our design practice ethics.
I chose industrial design because I wanted to create things that genuinely help people, not just look good or sell well. In my honors year, I worked on Suits, a modular eye care device for people with keratoconus. I spent time speaking with the users, doctors, to understand the routine, pain points, and emotional strain of living with this condition. That process made me realize ethical design starts with empathy. It's not just about reducing harm, it's about creating space for dignity, autonomy, and access. It shaped how I see my role as a designer, not just as a problem solver in isolation, but as someone responsible for the ripple effects of every decision. After graduation, I moved into consultancy because I wanted to keep doing diverse, meaningful work that benefit both the users and environment, while learning how to deliver it within real-world constraints. That led me to Catapult. What I value most about working here is that ethics isn't treated as a separate checkbox. It's embedded in how we work. We trust the process. From early research to detailed development, there are always moments to ask, is this the right material? Will it last? Can it be recycled? Collaboration is another central value at Catapult. I've always been encouraged to contribute ideas that make products more serviceable, reduce waste, or extend lifespan. And increasingly, clients are more open to those conversations too, especially as global policies around sustainability and repairability continue to evolve. For me, ethical design is about attention. It's about noticing where things can be better for the user, for the environment, and acting on it, even in small ways.
I believe ethical design is designing for diversity, not just the majority. Ethical design is about slowing down and considering voices in the design process that hadn't been considered. I've seen firsthand how exclusion can impact people and the negative impacts it has on their everyday life. We should be considering who we include within our design process right from the start.
I believe ethical design is the act of taking responsibility not just towards the products that we make or our clients, but actually the society around us and the systems we shape. Whatever we design in this world designs us back. It shapes behaviors, it shapes systems in which we live in. So ethical design is not just a checklist, it's actually a lifelong commitment to learning, to reflection, to staying awake and really using our creative power for the collective good of the society and our design community.
Designers, engineers, hardware, software, the things that connect us are more important than those that set us apart. We all came into our profession to improve the world around us, to solve problems, to improve lives, make things more efficient, and bring joy to people using the things, spaces, and experiences that we create. We believe that ethical design means staying true to that motivation we had when we started our careers, especially when things don't go to plan. Because in the real world of design consulting, things do get messy. Budgets tighten, timelines slip, and creative tensions flare, especially when our own areas of expertise pull us in different directions. That's why we need to remember that design is a team sport. It's important that we do our job and trust others and support them in doing theirs, because positive belief and teamwork is what makes ethical collaboration possible.
One shift I want to see in our industry is continued collaboration as a community. I think it's vital that we keep supporting each other as technology evolves, not just to keep up, but to stay grounded in values that matter. Ethical design is not just about what we make, it's also about who we are as a community.
I think ethical design for me means being really aware of the impact your work can have and genuinely stopping to think about the consequences of what you're designing. That impact could be environmental, social, financials, often all of these things at once. And I think that it's especially true for industrial designers because we work across so many different industries, and what we design can end up literally anywhere, in hospitals, homes, schools. And I think the thing is, those decisions and the materials we pick and the processes we choose and how long something lasts, they will ripple out in ways we don't see straight away, but I think those are all really important decisions. So for me, ethical design isn't just about ticking boxes and meeting standards, it's about being conscious at every stage and asking, is this the best choice? Not just for the product, but for the people using it and for the world that it ends up in. So to me, it's not just about doing less harm, it's about designing in ways that make things better.